Hey gang, welcome back. I think I got a little script for you that I want to share here. So, as you continue to make more and more complicated things, so here's a good example of one of my bosses that we're working on here. And this boss has a first phase in which a bunch of crazy stuff happens, and then it has a second phase, and then it has a third phase, and then it has a fourth phase. And I need to wire all these things together. I wound up building them kind of as individual prototype segments. And you will come to a point if you have boss battles that are 3 or 4 minutes, something like that, where you don't want to wait 3 or 4 minutes to get through the boss just to see the next phase, especially when you're debugging and you're trying to wire things up. So I'll show you what I got. So I have wired it up to where on the keyboard using the input command, I can now switch phases of the boss. So here's the second phase. And then every time I press a key on the keyboard, it will go to the next phase. So how did we do this? And right now, everything is a little messy on my side of things as I continue to dev sprawl. But I will come over to our sandbox test level and show you. And you can use this for all kinds of different things, right? If you need to create damage states or any kind of logic. So here, basically, I have the script here. I'll kind of show you what it does. And in this case, we're just saying for the sake of argument, say we wanted to spawn new enemy mini bosses at certain points during the boss battle phase, and we wanted to just see what those look like. So what that would look like is I'm going to press the key on the keyboard here, and that spawns a new enemy each time. So you can do it either way, where you want to, if you're doing multiple phases where when the boss phase 1 dies, it triggers logic, then you would kill that particular enemy. In this case, I was just showing you the other way. So super sweet and simple, hopefully. It took me a little longer than I expected to. So basically, here's the our little script hint here. So debug single button press. And what this looks like here, and I'll show you in the editor mode. Every time I press a key on the keyboard, you can see the logic then goes through, and it's for every single button press. All right. So go to the perspective. All right. So it starts here where we have basically an enemy type. As a little pro tip for you as well, if you want these to follow along with your scene, because the camera is scrolling, you'll want to take and change them to attach the camera. So I was going to do that as well, and I forgot, so I'll do that real quick. Because if enemies aren't awake, you can't kill them, so you can't test logic. And if enemies are too far off screen, when the camera scrolls by, they will despawn at some point. So keeping them on screen, even though they're hidden, and for the folks that don't know about this, you can basically check this out. So you can see here that I have these little bool enemies right here. Good shot. Look at this. Oh my goodness. And then every time I kill one of them, there's a little bit of logic that shows up for a second and then disappears. So I'll show you this again real quick. So see it moving through. And if you wanted to have the camera, if you were just like, hey, let's see this moving. Oh, did I do that right? Oh. Aha. Okay. Yeah. So if you want to have this in a way that makes sense, you want to have a dummy mover that you do. You add this guy to the camera, and then you're going to take and attach each one of your logic blocks. These are the bool enemies. So they're basically just a conditional. We're checking whether it's alive or dead, and you want to attach them all to the dummy mover object. So that way, when the dummy mover object hits the camera visibility range, it will then continue to bring these other enemies along for the ride. So you can see here it is. And then you can see here, same functionality works. But that's how you do that. So I'm even improving the script as I've written it. So, okay. So now coming back to how this whole thing works, and then what I'll do is I'll just step through it at the very end, just as a kind of a reminder, so that's easy for you to then pause the video and hook it up yourself. So starts with these bool type enemies that we've talked about. If you don't want them to appear, pro tip here, you can make them invisible, or a little checkbox here. So you can see this one showing up here with that bool. But if I check invisible, it is no longer showing up. So also helpful. Sometimes it's good to see the logic visualized. In this case, I don't really need to see it visualized, so I'll just go ahead and make those invisible too. Doesn't change any of the other functionality. It's just whether they render or not. This is super helpful when you want to do complex logic. Okay, and then so it starts with that. And then what we have here is we have two triggers attached to this enemy state. So one trigger is set to switch mode, and the connected entity state is alive. And the second trigger is connected entity state is all dead. So when for the logic to work, the enemy is now awake. And then what we do here is we come over here into the button properties. We set it to switch mode. We set it to always active, and then you can map it to whatever you want. It doesn't really matter in this case. So, and then if, so then that logic checks and says, cool, enemy is alive. We'll then allow for a button press to occur now that the trigger is active and it's woken up your button logic. And then we say, okay, cool. So in that case, we're going to do a couple things. So one is when we press the A button here, we are going to wake up an enemy. And when that enemy is awake, then we have a trigger piece of logic, which then basically says, hey, stay activated. And when the connected entity state is all alive, we do a couple things. So one is we kill the first enemy because we no longer want this block of logic to trigger again. And then we also, I think that's all we do is we kill that. So that basically kills the front enemy there. And then we basically do also a few things here. So one is, in this case, we wake this enemy up, but you could put anything here. I have a little text property here, which I've set to switch mode, but play until the end. And then this just shows that the logic is working and says bool true, right? So, and then basically what happens is then now when you press the button a second time, this is no longer true because this is no longer alive, but this one is. And so now what we do is we say, cool, check whether this enemy is dead or not. We do with the second trigger here. And if it is dead, then we are going to wake up this enemy here. And then we're going to rinse and repeat the same logic. And then you can do basically this in infinitum. But yeah, so 3 is usually the magic number. Now you could do a 12-step process. You could hook up anything to this. This is mainly just for debugging, but you know what? Like, there's no reason why you couldn't build some gameplay logic around this if you wanted to. So yeah, so I'll be quiet here and I'll just step through these so you can take a look at how it's laid out, and then you can take a look at the how we set up everything. So. You don't need any of this other stuff here. So, okay. Okay. And there you go. I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everybody.